Eros Meets Agape is a bi-weekly heart-to-heart conversation about love, sex, marriage, and relationships. Everyone wants to love and be loved, but everyone does not know how to give and receive the love they both want and need. Intimacy and passion are essential, yet mean nothing if there isn't unconditional and sacrificial love, which is the foundation for any lasting relationship. Dr. Saudia is a licensed marriage and family therapist and minister. Let's listen in as she shares how to create healthier and happier relationships.
Hey there, family. I am so excited to share with you another episode of the Eros Meets Agape podcast where I am your host, Dr. Saudia. Today, we are going to talk about what it is like being raised by a Black mama. Does it mean you have mommy issues? You might think you do, but you really don't. It's just a part of growing up in the culture. So what does that mean? Well, let's go ahead and join us in the classroom as we're going to talk about dealing with mommy issues, being raised by a Black mom. All right. Now, some of you are probably like, whoa, where are we going today? What's happening here? Now, it has nothing to do with society or anything that's happening in society. It's really just about understanding what it's like being raised by a Black mom, and then what it is especially like if you are being raised by a mom who happens to be single. It's a lot of different pressures that people take on. So let me give you an ideas for an example. So I heard in this, I used to watch this relationship show years ago. It would be reality shows for when you're getting married. I can't think of it now, what the name is, but the officiant that particular wedding was the Reverend Jesse Jackson. And he gave the husband to be an example of what his future life was like. So what that really means is he said to the gentleman, well, you're getting married at 4:00. Let me tell you this. You can rest assured in knowing that your bride-to-be is in her room right now saying, thank you, Jesus, that I don't have to figure it out anymore. That right now, moving forward in my life, it is someone else's responsibility to figure it out, to come up with the solutions. And all I really need to do is support from here on out. Now, don't get me wrong. Support is a big job. And sometimes when you're not in agreement with what's happening, support can be quite difficult. That's making it a big job. But when you've been the person figuring out the entire time and you're tired of figuring it out, you're tired of coming up with solutions and navigating everything and being the one that's taking care of everyone and everything, you are welcoming that support role. But the husband, as Jesse Jackson was saying to him, he was saying, well, guess what? While she's saying, thank you, Jesus, that my job and taking care of everything is now over, the husband is now realizing, oh, wait a minute. Up until this point, I have lived my life freely, thinking pretty much about myself, doing what I want. But now that I get married, it is my responsibility to take care of this woman and to take care of her kids or our kids. I won't say or, but and our kids, right? Especially if we come into a relationship with children from a prior relationship that's having a blended family. So what does this really mean when it comes to marriage and love? Well, we're looking at it from the viewpoint of mom and what that does to us. So let me give you a hint. Growing up in my household, right? My parents were married up until the time I was about 10, and then unfortunately they were divorced. Now, I was fortunate enough, as I've said many times, that I had a great relationship with my father until the time that he went on home to be with the Lord. Yet I did grow up in a household with a single Black mom. Now, we lived, I don't want to say cushy and wealthy because we were not, nor did we really grow up in the hood. So we were kind of in between. I would say lower middle class. So we did have a lot of issues that maybe some people had, but we still had issues, which meant that, you know, there was a difference in how we lived when my dad lived in the house with us and then how we lived after they were divorced. So I lived in a lovely neighborhood, grew up with friends on my block. Shout out to my press block folks. And we had a wonderful time. But when my parents got divorced, we couldn't afford that household anymore. So we had to move and downsize. And this put me in a new environment that I was not comfortable with. But in the same sense, it amped up how my mother raised us, because now we're not in the lower middle class area where, we are a family unit on our block and everyone gets along and the parents are, PTAing together and hanging out at the block picnic. I wasn't in that environment anymore. So my mom really put on a stronger role. Now, because she came from military and being raised by her father, because her mom was deceased when she was younger, it was a lot more, let's just say, interesting growing up in my household. I would always say that surviving being with my mom, I could survive anyone saying and doing anything to me. Now, this is not to disparage my mom at all. It's really in helping us to understand mommy issues today. So kids today really think they have it rough, that their parents are really on them hard. But in my generation, parents were even harder. And it's because of the generation from which they grew up. So from my mom's vantage point, she grew up in a rough environment, and her and my dad wanted better for their kids. So because they wanted better for their children, they did things differently as far as the schools that we attended and the environment that we were in and the programs that we were a part of and how they decided to raise us. But once they were divorced, that responsibility of trying to figure it out and having all the answers basically fell upon my mom, because we all know we love our dads. We really do. But when your parents are divorced, or at least how I saw it, let me tell y'all something. I lived with my mom, but it was good time living when I would go over to my dad's house. It was sort of like going over to, have the best fun ever, because that parent, which is the non-custodial residential parent, big term for saying the person that you don't live with every day, that parent has that responsibility now to really enrich their time with you. So when they can't be with you every day, what do? They make that time as fun as they possibly can, which means the rules are different. They're more lenient. They're not as harsh on you. But that parent that raises you day in, day out, that tells you, do your homework. You can't go hang out with this person. You can't go and participate in that activity. Instead, you're going to do this activity instead. No, you're not going to eat that. Instead, you're going to eat this. No, you're not going to watch that, play that. Instead, you're going to work on this. That is the custodial parent. That is the primary caregiver that is responsible for seeing to it that you turn out to be a decent human being. So when I look back on how my mom was harsh on me, now, I'll be honest, I'm a little sensitive. So her language, even though my mom has never cussed us out or called us out our name, she was a bit rough, right? But in looking at understanding the reason for it, I might not have always appreciated the delivery. I understood that it came from a place of love. Now, as an adult, I can see that a lot clearer than when I was a kid. As a kid, you're pretty much like, I can't wait to get out of here. I can't wait to leave this place, right? Because we want to experience our own things and we want to make our own decisions. But how many of us know that if you have, as a child, wanted to be an adult and you couldn't wait to be an adult, then you got your chance to be an adult and you realize, wait a minute, this adulting thing, it's not all what it's cracked up to be. Yeah, I get to make my own decisions, but I'm also paying these bills myself. I have to get up and go to work to pay these bills. So therefore, adulting isn't as leisurely as what we would consider when we're younger, right? Because we're looking at it from a different vantage point. So when we're talking about mommy issues, as a therapist and a coach, I come across a number of women especially who don't always have the best relationships with their mother. Now, if you have a wonderful relationship with your mom, I am so excited and happy for you because, you see things on social media like my mom is my best friend or hanging with my favorite girl or, spending time with my number one girlfriend, whatever that is. I am so excited for you because let me just tell you, my mom, she became my friend. Oh my gosh. When I was in my 20s, was I in my 20s? I think it was in my early 20s or I was 19, but I was lifeguarding. I was living with my dad. So, I was having me a fun life because dads aren't on you when it comes to curfew and who you're hanging out with. So life was a lot leisurely living with dad when I was in my college years. So when I had time to hang out with my mom, it really was girlfriend time and it was fun. and I enjoyed it, but it was an entirely different experience than when I was younger. And then on top of that, a lot of people in the African American community, when we are growing up, there's generally more than one generation in the household. So for instance, a lot of people call grandma, big ma, or granny, or, grandma, grandmother, whatever it is you call grandma, right? Is generally in the African American household. Sometimes a lot in Hispanic, Latina households, you'll have the grandparent, the mom, and then the child. So it's generally 3 generations. So growing up, you'll have the grandparent in the same household where they're with their grandchild. This is called the sandwich generation, where, you all are living together. One is taking care of the other. Now, when you're in this household and someone is developing mommy issues, it's from a different vantage point, because grandma, who's your mom, has really a whole bunch of experience in being a parent and parenting. So therefore, they want to give you tips and tools on how to parent your child. But guess what? They don't always hear you when you say, no, it's my child. I was watching Queen Sugar the other day. I'm always late on the seasons just because I don't watch television as much as I want. But I was watching Queen Sugar, and she isn't a grandma, but she's like a grandmother. But the character Vi was upset that the character Blue was going away to school, and she wanted to talk to the parent in regard to that was a poor decision. But the father has said, which is Ralph Angel, had pretty much said, no, this is what we do, and this is the decision that we made, and we are the parents. So it's difficult when you are the parent raising your child and you're getting feedback from mom, who obviously, let's just be honest, did a great job because you turned out all right. You are a healthy, functioning individual. Yes, you may experience some issues. You may have some flaws, but you turned out all right. You're not a serial killer. You aren't doing things that cause you to be a havoc to society. All in all, when we're identifying with mommy issues, I'm breaking this down to share with you. We have to look at the premise in which these issues were developed. So from a child's eye, the ability and the opportunity to be able to be an adult and make your own decision, if you are living in a household where your parent is with you while you're raising your child, you may still experience resemblances or reminisce on experiences you had in your childhood where you could make decisions. And that's because your parent is still living there, and it's hard for them to turn off that parental mode. They don't really understand that as well. But my tip and point for you to share with them, and I'll share the points along the way as opposed to waiting to the end. My tip and point for that is to really communicate with mom, not just that you are the parent, but really to communicate with mom, I would say is, what's the right phrasing? It's optional. That's the best way to place that and to put it nicely. And it's optional because as a child, we listen to our parents. We try to be obedient and respectful to them, right? But as I grow up, I need you less physically as well as less emotionally because I am becoming an independent person. Thus, when I become a parent myself, and even though you may be living under my roof, while I am raising my child, it's still my child. Therefore, as an adult, whether you are with a child or without, being an adult, but still being parented by your parent, that is, let's just say, is a light that has to be shut off. And the way that we communicate that is really by saying that as an adult, how about if I ask you for advice, then that is when I have opened the door to hear your opinion. And therefore, even though it is something that I requested, it's still optional. And because it's optional, I don't have to take the advice that you are offering. But in the same sense, I am listening to see if it fits me and is appropriate for me. Now, you have to be careful here because parents are sensitive. They've been parenting you for so long that sometimes they may feel that you may not be hearing them. You may not see things the way that they want you to see them, and you may, as a result, make a big mistake. But they have to learn and understand that even if a mistake is made, it's that person's life and they are not in control, nor do they have authority over another individual. As a parent, they have done their part. And when I say they have done their part, meaning they have done their share in parenting because you turned out great. And the reason why I say you turned out great, we all have things that we're dealing with that may cause us to feel I can grow in this area or I can work on this. Absolutely 1000% true. I totally agree with that because as humans, we can always get better. But we do so at our own choice and volition, not under the urgence of a parent who is trying to parent an adult child. Okay. The second point I really want to identify when it comes to developing mommy issues is really seeing individuals get to a place where they are, how can I put this? When you have two women living under the same roof, you really have two queen bee issues. If you look at personality styles and you come from dominant or strong personalities, and you have two women with strong dominant personalities under the same roof, again, speaking to Latina cultures and African American cultures, because these are cultures that are collectivistic, which means that they will have more than one generation within the household for whatever reason. For the most part, in these particular cultures, it's a result of being a juvenile parent or being a single parent. So generally, when we're young, of course, we don't have enough money to live on our own, which is why we are within the same household. But on top of that, what if we just recently experienced a divorce, or maybe we were cohabitating with our partner and the dissolution of that relationship has caused us to now have to go home until we get back on our feet? Generally, based on research, when it comes to the dissolution of a relationship, especially the dissolution of a marriage, financially, the female suffers more. And that's most likely in times past because she is the one that has sacrificed financially as far as work is concerned, because her primary responsibility was to the nurturing and raising of her children. So generally, males have been the breadwinners, where they are the ones that are the financial providers. Remember that Jesse Jackson example, whereas that guy is now getting married. It's 4:00 and he's like, wait a minute, this responsibility is on me now. Men really think about that. And it's one of the reasons that causes them to hesitate on marriage, because they're contemplating, can I take care of this person? And can I take care of the persons that come from us as a result of our union? So it puts a lot of financial pressure on them. But when, or if, let's just say if, because we don't want it to be a win situation. If that relationship dissolves, well, then guess what? Men have generally in times past, and I know that there are some caveats to that, where there are some stay-at-home dads now, but men especially have never really had to sacrifice financially in order to be there at home for their children or at their events. It's generally moms that take on that responsibility. Now, if that's not your household, just place this to the side. You are an exception to the rule, and God bless you, because it's not that many out there. So when or if a divorce happens, the dad is usually still financially living, let's just say healthily. And in the same sense, the father is generally not the custodial parent. So it's a one-person household as opposed to now in this one household, I'm raising my children. Now, before you go any further, I know you're going to say, well, what about friend of the court and child support? Yes, that is a portion that does go to mom in raising the children. But yet again, mom still has to raise her kids, go to work, take the responsibility onto the household. And that adds a lot of emotional pressure, because without having that male figure in the home as additional support to back her up or to reinforce what they have agreed upon, it is now her responsibility, and that onus is on her to enforce certain rules. Now, if you're raising boys, let's just be honest, you have to be tough. There's generally no way that you're going to be soft or genteel with a boy, whereas how you would if it was with a girl, because you're raising different temperaments. Now imagine growing up in a household where you are a boy mom and you are making certain that even though a father figure is in the home, or dad is in the home, but you're a mom, you still want to be respected by your sons. So there are certain types of communication that could result. Now, the flip to that is, say you're in a household where it is all women except for dad. And let's just say, unfortunately, dad is no longer with you, whether dad, unfortunately, is now living with the Lord or dad lives separately as a result of the dissolution of that relationship or divorce. And now mom is in the household with those women, those young girls. Here's the catch that you want to identify. And I would say this is one of the reasons why I see clients that have mommy issues. A mom raising daughters is different than a mom raising sons. Raising a son, there's a little bit more of a lackadaisical approach. You don't have to worry about sons like you do daughters. Daughters take a lot more attention and time. Not that you don't spend time with your sons. That's not what I'm saying. However, it's a different approach because generally moms don't really raise boys. We try to give that responsibility to dads because it is our dads who raise our boys. We can teach our sons how to be gentlemen, how to respect a woman, and how to have a healthy relationship with a woman. But because we aren't men, we can't teach them how to be a man. We can, should I say, educate them on certain points, but never from a place of where we have full understanding from personal experience. Yet when those moms are raising those daughters, well, guess what? It is a little bit difficult raising daughters because you're dealing with emotional temperaments and you are raising a future adult, a future wife, a future mom. So there are things that you have to drill in them. So imagine you have young kids, and let's just say, you're teaching your toddlers to say thank you. Let me just tell you, that can be a difficult process. Now, I have a great niece, and she is so adorable. She says thank you, or if you do something, it's okay. I love it because she's been taught that things don't have to be that dramatic if there's an issue or a problem, but she's also been taught we say please, we say thank you. Now, trust me, she has her own little temperament that's quite special. However, she's being taught to be respectful and mannerable. So just imagine when you are raising a young child and you're trying to instill certain temperaments in them. Boys are more easygoing. You can teach them a lot easier. Girls are more temperamental and emotional because they use more of the emotional side of their brain, whereas sons use the more logical side of their brains. So when you have a mom raising a daughter or daughters, you are raising her to be a future nurturer and caregiver. Therefore, there are certain things that you're trying to instill in her. And so because you're drilling it in, you may be hard on her. But we also have to recognize that even though we're trying to be understanding of mom, we also have to recognize where mom could come from and what issues mom may have experienced. So case in point, I've worked with a number of women who have pretty much just said they have experienced issues with their relationships with their mom that has caused them to have strain in their relationship together. And when they divulge the things that have happened, the conversations or the experiences or even the exchanges between them, I like 1,000 a day. I would 1,000% agree. Totally, I am on your side that was wrong. And while I recognize that this was harmful to you, let's look at it from a different vantage point, because as a therapist, my job is to not particularly get on your side and not be on another person's side. My job is to augment understanding so that you can grow and transform, heal, and recover from things that have harmed you in your past. So if there have been tumultuous times between a mother and daughter, I always will ask my clients, and I do it very gently, but I'll ask them, tell me, how much do you know about how your mom was raised? 9 times out of 10, they always tell me the type of relationship that they have with their mom is either the same exact type of relationship that their mom had with their mother, or it is a little bit better. And when I say a little bit better, meaning things aren't great, but they see how unhealthy or dysfunctional their relationship with their mother and grandmother is. However, between them and their mom, it's a little bit better. And from that vantage point, we're able to see mom is trying. She hasn't really gotten it right, but she's trying because she's made a decision at some point in her life to say, that really didn't turn out so well for me growing up. Let me do things differently. And even though her differently isn't her best, her differently actually is the best that she was able to do. And there's no manual when it comes to parenting. We do the best that we can, right? And because we're doing the best that we can, we are going to make mistakes. But as we mature and as we age and we get to a place where we're able to own those errors and have those vulnerable but yet hard conversations, then we get to a place where growth can take place. Let me just tell you, when my mom had the conversation with me that she knows that she was hard on us, but she told us why she was, because she saw how she grew up and it was a bad environment. People didn't go on to do much with their lives, or, they had issues with different types of addictions, and she didn't want that. So she said, I chose the dad that you all have because we were on the same wavelength. And even though things didn't work out there with that relationship, I did the best that I could. And when I learned about how my mom was raised, and then just as she aged, she got better. Because remember, we had that fabulous period in the early 20s, but then we experienced the rough patch. And it goes to a lot of the points that we've talked about today that I see in counseling sessions with my clients. And it is a result of I experienced mommy issues because, one, mom has had to do things on her own because dad either wasn't around or dad wasn't a full-time dad because they were divorced and no longer together. Or my mom grew up in an environment that she did the best she could based on where she came from. And that in and of itself is showing the growth that she has experienced, because she and I have a better relationship than what she and grandma could have had. Now, in my situation, my mother didn't really have a mom. Her mother died when she was 4 years old, so she really didn't know what it was like to have a parent, a mother in her life. She had a full-time dad and who was 100% available to her, but she didn't have that mom, so she lacked that nurturing element. And that was an element that, I would particularly say that I needed, which leads me to the third and final point. We have to get to a place that we parent our children based on their personalities and what it is that we believe that they need, not just simply raising them to be solely healthy, functioning individuals, but in recognizing that they're going to be these individuals in this type of world, and knowing what type of personality you have. As a parent, we try to temper that, but we don't always get that gauging level correct. We do the best we can with what we have and the knowledge from which we have access to, either personally or relationally, experientially, or educationally. All in all, what I'm trying to say is when we experience mommy issues, whether we are men or women that have not had the best relationship with our parents over time, we're all realizing that in this walk of life, we do the best that we can. And we don't all start off with the same card, so to speak. We all are dealt a different hand that we have to function. And then we all become parents to different types of children that we have to healthily parent as best for that child and their specific and individual relational needs. So might not be, even though I might have twins, I can't parent my twins the same because they are separate individuals. Even though they're twins and alike in so many ways, are identical in so many ways, they are still separate individual humans. And I have to understand who they are and as well parent accordingly. So that leads me to the final point, which is it really is a matter of how we learn through the decades. Parents of my generation didn't have as much knowledge or resources, right, like that we have right now. For instance, you can go and look up anything on Google or YouTube, and it will teach you everything that you need to know. Having information readily accessible is something that is a privilege and a gift that we have today that we didn't have in yesteryear. So parents that didn't have this tool and resource, which I would say would be Gen Xers or baby boomer parents, they didn't have this information available to them. So guess what happened? They figured it out as they went along. And we can't fault them for the knowledge that they didn't have. But parents who do have this information, we have to take full advantage of everything that we have so that we can use it as a tool and a resource to help us not just become better parents, but better people and having better relationships with our children. All in all, we don't have to become scholars or teachers of parenting and become the advocate for all parents. We just need to know exactly what's needed for raising our children. Now, you all know me, and I say the same phrase all the time. I believe the best parenting that you can give anyone is giving them a foundation in Jesus. Now, people have their varying opinions on, what that means or what that should look like. And whether or not that's what people do, I think is wonderful in giving a child that type of foundation, because so many children can sometimes feel lost, especially if we look at Gen Z and millennials. They're the one generation that as of right now, they are stated as feeling the most lost, the most disconnected. They feel the most alone and isolated. But when we have a foundation in Christ, well, guess what? We have a place of refuge. We have a place where we can get wisdom, learning, and understanding. And even though it may come from a parent who has flaws and did not always get it right, we have something from which we can build. So when we come from a place where we use every bit of knowledge and resource and tools that we have access to our benefit, then we raise healthier children, which become healthier adults, which guess what? Becomes healthier parents when it's their turn. All in all, when we're having and experiencing mommy issues, in most cases, it's because we have grown up in an environment where our parent may not have been the kindest to us. We may have had some, let's just say, challenging conversations and relationships with them. But more than likely, it's a result of they're either trying to do their best, which means bettering from where they came from, or they're still stuck in their own place in pain of hurt or still broken, therefore not being able to give you your best because they are not at their best. And what do I mean by that? If I'm not 100% healthy myself, then how can I be in a place where I can give you what you need? So for instance, I've been on vacation from counseling for a couple of weeks now. And let me just say, totally excited about the fact that I have not had to counsel. It's not because I don't love my job. It's solely because as a therapist, I'm a person and I need a break too. Whereas if I'm always pouring into others, then guess what? At some place, I'm going to get low and I'm going to need a break, rest, R&R, to be able to sit back, relax, kind of just let things go out of my mind, just space out for a minute without always being on. And so when we have that break, guess what? We come back rejuvenated. We come back energized, ready and raring to be able to do what it is that we need to do. But how many of us know when you are a single parent, let me just be honest, when you are a parent, there's no day off. There is no vacation. You don't get that when you're a parent. And so when parents have the stressors of this life and dealing with their own issues, it's very difficult if they don't have existing personal issues to be able to always be on point to pour into our children. We need those breaks too. It's the reason why parents look forward to their kids' bedtime. It's because, I'm off duty. I get to have some me time. As parents, you have to have time for yourself so that you can relax, rejuvenate, get some R&R so that you can come back fully restored. But if you're doing that from a place of really not having breaks or not having those moments where you can have a break from your kids, it causes you to have burnout experiences. Or if we are still hurt and broken ourselves, it causes us to raise children that experience some form or semblance of that brokenness and hurt. Again, everyone, no one is perfect. And I know this was kind of a difficult topic to talk about because in sharing mommy issues, we're looking at it not saying that we're badgering moms, but we're really looking at identifying what's happening. It's hard being a mom in general with all the tasks and duties and responsibilities that we have, but it's especially hard being a mom nowadays when you are a single parent, whether you're raising all boys and you have to be tough on them or raising future wives and mothers and nurturers to make certain that you're instilling the right things in them so that they can be functioning, healthy adults that can take care of themselves, that you can rest knowing that no matter what comes their way, they'll be okay. But if we do so from a place of hurt and brokenness ourselves, then we only perpetuate that pain to move into the next generation. Somebody has to say no. Someone has to stop. And someone actually has to be the bigger person to say, wait a minute, what do we need to do to fix this? Everyone, like I said, doesn't have the luxury of having your mom as your best or your closest friend. I'm at a place where I'm fortunate that even though my mom, let me be honest, my mom can get on my nerves. Y'all know how you all are. You just always just on your kids, right? Or, just doing mommy type things. But I'm fortunate that I have a great relationship with my mom that has taken time to build and grow. But it's a wonderful place to be. And I don't know if that's because, she's seen herself or I've seen myself or we've both just grown. And there's a result of this individual growth that allows to have relational growth. But at the end of the day, it's all about seeing ourselves, learning and growing individually. And as an adult, even though I might not have had the most greatest childhood experience, I have to say to myself, I'm an adult now. Even though that happened back then, I'm responsible for what I do now. And that's how we have to look at things. We have to say, no matter what I may have overcome, no matter what may have been done wrong to me, how things were communicated or how I was treated, I have to get to a place of forgiveness and letting it go. So if you're experiencing mommy issues, know that there's hope, that change is possible, that transformation can take place. But I just suggest to you this. Understand from a different perspective, meaning where and how did your mom grow up? And what was your mom taught in growing up? Because more than likely, that's why you could have experienced the things that you endure, which led to your mommy issues. Additionally, when we are living under the same household with more than one generation, then we're also recognizing I have to listen to someone else direct the rules of the household, and I have to be respectful of that while still being an adult myself. And then finally, we just have to realize if we don't know better, we can't do better. But once we do know better, we can do as well as be better individuals ourselves. So use those available resources. YouTube, Google, therapists, counselors, coaches are available at your fingertips. Resources are available within our communities, and we have to reach out in order to get to a place where we're learning and growing. All right. That's it for me for today, guys. I hope this episode was helpful. It was a little bit much, meaning mommy issues is difficult because mom is the first person that we reach out to when we're on TV. Hey, mom, or we thank mom for, when we've made it so far and success. Oh, I want to thank my mom because that person was there. We truly have a heart to love our moms. We just need to figure out how to do so in a way that is healthy for both of us as we continue to grow. All right. That's it for me in today's episode. So let's go over our take-home points. I think my like it tip for today is the fact that I like the way that once we understand what went wrong, we can automatically correct it. So therefore, I like the ability in being able to change the current condition. If I looked at my love it tip for today, I think I would suggest that when it comes to the love it tip, I love the way that if I want better, then I can have it as long as I'm willing to transform. But if we look at it from the aspect of someone else has to change, we'll always be stuck and remain where we are. So I love the fact that once we take ownership for who we are and we make the decision to change and be better, it automatically causes others to change themselves because we're no longer responding in the way that we were prior, or should I say previously accustomed, but instead we're responding healthier, which requires others to do the same. And then my leave it tip is, if it's not working, you got to leave that in the past. I know it may seem, it's not fair, but eventually I just think you get to a place where you're okay with that. And then one day it sneaks up on you where someone apologizes to you when you're least expecting it, right? You might not always get an apology. I don't want you to be, bent and focused on, yes, I have to get that apology, because it may never come. But when we leave things in the past and we choose to be forgiving, doesn't mean that we condone what's happened. It just means that I'm choosing to let it go. I'm no longer allowing my past to have any effect or authority over me. I'm in charge and I'm making the decision that I am choosing to let this go. Not because I said it was okay, but because I said it no longer has any place in my future. Therefore, I'm leaving it in my past. And those are my take-home points for today. I hope you all have enjoyed today's episode. I really like being able to reach deep and to share different topics and points of interest. And this is one which we really have never really delved into. So I'm glad we got a chance to talk about it today. All right. Well, that's it for today's episode. Thank you for joining us. You know me. I'm your host, Dr. Sadia. I love talking to you about all things love, sex, marriage, and relationships. You know how we close out. We love for you to rate and review us wherever you downloaded the show. We're on various platforms. You can always follow us on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Guess what? TikTok and Snapchat at Eros Meets Agape. And that's it for this week's episode. I'm Dr. Sadia, helping you to give and receive the love you both want and need. Till next time, be blessed, everyone. Bye-bye.